I'm standing in my backyard looking directly at the camera, my hands still shaking from what just happened 2 hours ago. The butterfly decorations from my twins' 8th birthday party are still swaying in the Texas breeze behind me, and there's cake frosting smeared on my sleeve that I haven't bothered to clean off yet. My mother-in-law, Gloria, just stood up at my daughter's birthday party and announced to 50 guests that my children weren't real grandchildren. She said I trapped her son with adopted babies because I couldn't give him biological ones. Every parent, every child, every neighbor we've known for years just stood there staring at my beautiful 8-year-old girls as their grandmother tore their world apart. I take a breath, steadying myself as I remember what came next. But then my daughter, Juniper, my quiet little girl who whispers when she orders at restaurants, stood up on her chair in her butterfly dress and asked my mother-in-law a question that changed everything. She said, "Grandma, should I tell everyone your secret? The one you told me never to repeat?" And I watched the most controlling, confident woman I've ever known turn white as a sheet and drop her wine glass in pure terror. The camera catches the emotion in my eyes as I lean forward. What my 8-year-old said next exposed 40 years of hidden guilt that my mother-in-law had buried so deep, even her own husband didn't know. It revealed why she'd really been cruel to my daughters for 8 years, and it had nothing to do with them being adopted. It had everything to do with a twin sister named Rosemary that Gloria had destroyed with the exact same words she'd just used on my children. I pause, letting the weight of that sink in. I'm Bethany, and I'm a part-time florist and full-time mom to twin daughters who just taught their grandmother that family secrets have a way of surfacing when you least expect them. My husband Rod is a high school football coach who spent 8 years defending our decision to adopt. Our twins, Juniper and Magnolia, just wanted a butterfly birthday party, and Gloria, my mother-in-law, the retired bank manager who prides herself on being proper and in control, just learned that the cruelest words you speak have a way of coming back to haunt you, sometimes through the voice of an 8-year-old who refuses to let you hurt her family. I look straight into the camera, my voice firm now. This is the story of how my daughter's simple question unraveled 4 decades of guilt and changed our entire family in the space of a single birthday party. Because sometimes the smallest voices carry the biggest truths, and sometimes the people who insist that blood makes a family are the very ones running from what they did to their own. Life in our suburban Dallas home had always been complicated with Gloria around. For 7 years, since Rod and I adopted our beautiful twin girls as infants, she'd made her disapproval clear in 1,000 small ways. Not the obvious kind of cruelty that you could call out directly, but the death by 1,000 paper cuts that left me questioning myself at every family gathering. "Oh, Bethany, store-bought cookies again?" she'd say at Sunday dinner, her perfectly manicured nails drumming on my dining table. "Well, I suppose you're doing your best with everything on your plate. When I was raising Rod and Donovan, I made everything from scratch, but times are different now, aren't they?" Rod would squeeze my hand under the table, his jaw tight with the effort of not exploding at his mother. "Mom, Bethany runs her own florist business and manages our household. She doesn't need to bake cookies from scratch to be a good mother." "Of course not, dear," Gloria would reply, her smile never reaching her eyes. "I'm just saying there's something special about the smell of homemade cookies in a home with children. But then again, everyone does things their own way." The real poison came when she talked about Rod's younger brother Donovan's biological children. She'd pull out her phone at every opportunity, showing us endless photos. "Look how much little Theodore has Donovan's eyes, and baby Charlotte has the Pemberton nose. There's nothing quite like seeing your own blood reflected in a child's face. It's a blessing not everyone gets to experience, I suppose." My father-in-law, Harold, would shift uncomfortably in his chair, clearing his throat. Harold was a quiet man, a retired mechanic who'd spent 40 years fixing engines and had learned that sometimes the best response to Gloria was silence. But even he had his limits. "Gloria, that's enough," he'd sometimes mutter, though she rarely listened. The twins felt it too, even if they didn't fully understand it. Juniper once asked me why Grandma Gloria always brought presents for Theodore and Charlotte when she visited them, but only brought cards for her and Maggie. Maggie had noticed that Gloria's Facebook was full of photos of Donovan's kids, but barely had any of them. "Mama, doesn't Grandma love us?" Maggie had asked one night, her orange butterfly pajamas twisted around her small body as she climbed into my bed after a nightmare. "Of course she does, baby," I'd lied, smoothing her dark hair. "Grandma just has a hard time showing it sometimes." But this birthday was supposed to be different. The girls had been planning their butterfly garden party for months, and somehow, miraculously, Gloria had gotten involved. It started when Juniper mentioned at Sunday dinner that she was researching Texas butterflies for her party theme. "Did you know that monarch butterflies travel 3,000 miles?" Juniper had said, her eyes bright with excitement. "They choose special gardens to return to every year." Something in Gloria's face had shifted. "I used to love butterflies when I was your age," she'd said quietly, and for once, her voice held no edge. The next week, she'd shown up with gardening, gloves and packets of milkweed seeds. "Every butterfly garden needs host plants," she'd announced, and spent 3 hours in the hot Texas sun helping the girls plant them. I'd watched from the kitchen window as Gloria knelt in the dirt, her usual pristine appearance forgotten, teaching Juniper about caterpillars and chrysalises. Maggie had painted butterfly rocks while they worked, and Gloria had actually praised her artistic talent without comparing it to Charlotte's. "Maybe she's finally coming around," Rod had said hopefully, wrapping his arms around me as we watched. "Maybe she just needed time." The morning of the party, our house transformed into Butterfly Central. Rod hung purple and orange streamers from every surface, while I arranged butterfly-shaped sandwiches and fruit kebabs that looked like caterpillars. Harold arrived at 7 in the morning, carrying 2 handmade butterfly houses he'd been secretly building in his garage. "Grandpa Harold, you remembered our favorite colors," Maggie had squealed, examining the purple house with delicate carved details. "Course I did, little butterfly," he'd said gruffly, his weathered hands gentle as he helped them find the perfect spot in the garden to hang them. Gloria arrived an hour before the guests, wearing her finest pearl necklace and a lavender dress that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage. She walked through my decorations with that familiar critical eye, adjusting tablecloths that didn't need adjusting, straightening plates that were already straight. "I suppose this will do," she said, then louder, ensuring the girls heard. Though, when Donovan's Theodore turned 8, they had a professional party planner. The theme was astronauts, and they even had someone dressed as Neil Armstrong. But homemade has its own charm, doesn't it? I bit my tongue and continued filling juice cups, reminding myself that in 2 hours, this party would be over, and we'd have made it through another family event. I had no idea that in 2 hours, our entire family would be shattered and rebuilt in ways I never could have imagined. The party started beautifully. 50 guests filled our backyard, transforming it into exactly the magical butterfly wonderland Juniper and Maggie had dreamed about. Their entire second-grade class was there, along with their soccer teammates, our neighbors the Washburns with their 3 kids, and my sister Camille, who'd driven in from Houston with her family. Even Rod's assistant coach, Marcus, had stopped by with his wife and new baby. The butterfly release was the highlight. We'd ordered 50 painted lady butterflies, and watching them emerge from their container into the bright Texas sunshine made everyone gasp with delight. One landed right on Juniper's nose, making her giggle, while 3 butterflies chose Maggie's outstretched hands as their resting spot. Even Gloria smiled, and I caught Harold taking a photo of her watching the girls with something that looked almost like tenderness. "Make a wish, birthday girls," someone called out, and both twins closed their eyes, their faces scrunched in concentration. The activities were a hit. Rod ran the butterfly relay race while I helped kids make tissue paper butterflies at the craft station. Gloria had actually volunteered to read The Very Hungry Caterpillar to a group of younger children, and I heard her doing different voices for each fruit, earning delighted squeals from her audience. "This is perfect," Camille whispered to me as we watched. "Look how happy they are." Then came cake time. Everyone gathered around our long picnic table, where the butterfly cake I'd spent 3 hours decorating sat as the centerpiece. It was covered in purple and orange buttercream flowers, with 2 chocolate butterflies perched on top. Rod lit the candles while the crowd began singing "Happy Birthday." That's when Gloria clinked her fork against her wine glass. The singing gradually faded as people noticed her standing, waiting for attention. She had that look on her face, the one she wore when she was about to foreclose on someone's loan at the bank. My stomach dropped. "Before we celebrate," she announced, her voice carrying that formal tone that meant trouble, "I think it's time for some honesty in this family." Rod's hand found mine under the table, gripping tight. "Mom, what are you doing?" She ignored him completely, addressing the crowd like she was giving a presentation at a board meeting. "For 8 years, I've watched my son play house with children who aren't his. I've held my tongue while everyone pretends this is normal, but I can't stay silent anymore." The backyard went completely quiet. Mrs. Washburn's mouth fell open. Marcus and his wife exchanged uncomfortable glances. Several parents began pulling their children closer. Gloria continued, her voice getting stronger. "These aren't real grandchildren." She gestured at our beautiful frozen daughters. "They're strangers' babies that Bethany trapped my son with when she couldn't give him children of his own. Some drug addict probably gave them up, and now we're all supposed to pretend they're Pembertons." "Gloria!" Harold stood up so fast his chair tipped backward, clattering on the patio stones. His face was red with fury I'd never seen before. "That's enough!" "No, Harold, it's not enough." Gloria's voice climbed higher, shrill now. "Everyone thinks I'm the villain for wanting biological grandchildren, but I'm the only one brave enough to say what we're all thinking. These children will never be real family. They'll never carry our blood, our genes, our family history. They're cuckoo birds in our nest, and one day they'll probably want to find their real families and abandon Rod just like their birth parents abandoned them." Maggie started crying, pressing her face into my shoulder. Several parents were already gathering their children, making excuses about needing to leave. I heard someone whisper, "This is horrible." Rod shot to his feet. "How dare you? How dare you speak about my daughters that way?" "They're not your daughters," Gloria shouted back. "They're someone else's cast-offs that you're raising because your wife is defective." The slap of that word hit me like a physical blow. Defective. Like I was a broken appliance that couldn't perform its basic function. My sister Camille stood up, her face furious. "You need to leave. Now." "This is my son's house," Gloria snapped. "I'll leave when I'm ready." That's when Juniper stood up. My quiet, thoughtful daughter, who took 3 weeks to work up the courage to raise her hand in class, who whispered when ordering at restaurants, who still asked me to call the pizza place because talking to strangers on the phone scared her, stood up on her chair in her butterfly dress and looked Gloria straight in the eye. "Grandma." Her voice was clear and steady, cutting through the chaos like a bell. "Should I tell everyone your secret? The one you told me never to repeat?" The entire backyard froze. Gloria's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the patio stones with a crash that made everyone jump. Her face drained of color so fast I thought she might faint. Gloria's face had turned the color of ash. She stood there among the shattered glass, her mouth opening and closing like a fish, gasping for air. The entire party of 50 people stood frozen, watching an 8-year-old girl in a butterfly dress face down the woman who'd just destroyed her birthday. "Juniper, sweetheart," Gloria's voice cracked, all her earlier authority evaporating. "I don't know what you mean. You must be confused, darling." "I'm not confused," Juniper said, still standing on her chair, her small hands steady at her sides. 3 weeks ago, when we were planting the butterfly garden, you were crying and you said something about a sister. You said her name was Rosemary and that I reminded you of her." "Stop!" Gloria's shriek made several younger children start crying. Their parents quickly ushered them toward the gate, but most of the adults remained, transfixed by the drama unfolding. Gloria looked around wildly at the guests, at Harold's shocked face, at Rod's confusion. "That was private, Junebug. That was our special conversation, just between us." I stepped forward, my protective instincts flaring. Every part of me wanted to grab my daughter and shield her from whatever was happening. "Juniper, honey, come here, let's go inside." But my daughter shook her head, her eyes never leaving Gloria's face. "Mama, she just said we're not real family. She said we're strangers' babies and cuckoo birds, but she told me a secret that proves she doesn't believe that. She knows we're real family. She knows it and it scares her." Rod moved toward his mother, his face a mix of anger and bewilderment. "Mom, what did you tell my daughter? What secret?" Gloria was backing away now, stumbling over the butterfly decorations we'd placed around the yard. Her perfectly styled hair was coming loose, and mascara had started running down her cheeks. It was nothing. I was emotional. The garden, the butterflies, it reminded me of something from long ago. Children misunderstand things. She's confused. Harold stepped forward, his voice gentle but firm in a way I'd rarely heard. Gloria, in 40 years of marriage, I've never seen you this scared. What secret are you keeping? Please, Gloria whispered, and for the first time since I'd known her, she looked fragile. Please don't do this. Not here. Not in front of everyone. Our neighbor, Mrs. Washburn, was already ushering her kids toward the gate, muttering about needing to get home, but most guests stood rooted to their spots. My sister Camille had her phone out, and I realized she was recording. Several other parents were doing the same. Juniper climbed down from her chair with careful deliberation and walked across the patio to where Gloria stood trembling. She took her grandmother's shaking hand in both of her small ones. You said I reminded you of someone you hurt, Juniper said softly, but her voice carried in the silent backyard. You said that's why it hurts to love me and Maggie, because we make you remember what you did. Juniper, please, Gloria begged, actually begged, something I'd never imagined I'd witness. You don't understand what you're doing. I do understand, Juniper replied. You told me about your sister, your twin sister who was adopted. You said you did something terrible to her and never got to say sorry. The gasp from Harold was audible across the yard. You don't have a sister. You told me you were an only child. Your parents only had one daughter. Gloria collapsed into a chair, her legs giving out completely. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. The crowd pressed closer, sensing that something monumental was about to be revealed. Tell them, Gloria whispered through her fingers. Tell them what a hypocrite I am. Tell them what a monster their proper, perfect Gloria really is. Maggie had stopped crying and moved to stand beside her twin. The two of them flanked Gloria's chair like tiny guardians, and I was struck by their courage. These 8-year-old girls who'd just been publicly humiliated were standing with the woman who'd hurt them. Juniper looked at me, and I saw the question in her eyes. I walked over and knelt beside my daughters. Whatever this is, it needs to come out, I said quietly. Secrets have a way of poisoning families. But Juniper, you don't have to be the one to tell it if you don't want to. I think I have to, Mama, she said, because Grandma can't, and it's hurting everyone. Rod had moved closer too, and Harold stood behind Gloria's chair, his weathered hands hovering over her shoulders, as if afraid to touch her. Grandma told me about her sister, Juniper said, her voice carrying across the silent yard. Her twin sister Rosemary, who was adopted, and what happened to her, and why Grandma has been mean to us for so long. Gloria lifted her tear-stained face from her hands, looking every one of her 62 years, and then some. Her perfect makeup was destroyed, her careful composure shattered. She looked at the crowd of neighbors, friends, and family members who'd come to celebrate but were now witnessing her complete unraveling. My parents had me in 1962, she began, her voice hoarse. 2 months later, they adopted a baby girl named Rosemary. They raised us as twins, dressed us alike, enrolled us in the same classes, gave us matching everything. We were Gloria and Rosemary, the Pemberton twins, even though we looked nothing alike. I was blonde with blue eyes like my mother, and Rosemary had this beautiful dark hair and green eyes that sparkled when she laughed. Harold's face was white with shock. 40 years, Gloria. How did I never know this? Because I erased her, Gloria said, her voice breaking. After what I did, I erased her from my life completely, threw away every photo, every letter, every piece of evidence she existed. My parents helped me. They were so ashamed of what happened, they agreed to pretend she never existed. Rod sat down hard on the nearest chair. Mom, what did you do? Gloria looked at Juniper and Maggie, tears streaming freely down her face. I was 15. There was a boy named Daniel Morrison that I'd liked all year. He was the quarterback, the golden boy everyone wanted. At the spring dance, he asked Rosemary to dance instead of me. Not just one dance, every dance. He told his friends she was beautiful and that I was just the boring sister. She paused, struggling to continue. The entire backyard was silent except for the distant sound of a lawn mower from 3 houses over. I was so angry, so jealous. Rosemary tried to talk to me that night when we got home. She said she didn't even like Daniel, that she'd rather have spent the dance with me and our friends like we'd planned. But I wouldn't listen. I screamed at her. I told her she wasn't my real sister. I told her she was just some trash baby my parents felt sorry for. I said her real mother was probably a prostitute or a drug addict who didn't want her. Several people in the crowd made sounds of distress. Mrs. Washburn had her hand over her mouth. But that wasn't the worst part, Gloria continued, her voice getting smaller. I told her she should be grateful my parents took pity on her. I said she was stealing my life, my parents' love, my friends, and now the boy I liked. I told her she wasn't real family and never would be. I said the exact words I just said about Juniper and Maggie. Gloria reached out and grabbed both girls' hands. Rosemary left that night. She climbed out her bedroom window with just her backpack and $30 from her piggy bank. She left a note that said, "If I'm not real family, I won't burden you anymore. Thank you for 15 years of pretending." "Oh my God," Camille whispered. "The police found her 3 states away, living under a bridge in Oklahoma City. She'd been sleeping in a cardboard box, eating out of dumpsters. My parents brought her home, but she never spoke to me again. Never. She lived in our house for 4 more years like a ghost. She'd leave rooms when I entered. She ate dinner in her bedroom. She walked to school an hour early just to avoid riding with me." Harold had sunk down beside his wife, his face stricken. "What happened to her?" "She died in a car accident 2 weeks after her 19th birthday, Gloria said. "She just aged out of the house, gotten her own apartment. She was driving to her job at a bookstore when a drunk driver hit her. The last real words she ever heard from me were that she wasn't real family." Gloria looked up at the stunned crowd. "At her funeral, I found out she'd been volunteering at an adoption support group. The director said Rosemary helped dozens of adopted kids feel valued and loved. She told them that being chosen made them special, not second best. She spent her last 4 years trying to make sure no adopted child ever felt the way I made her feel." She turned back to Juniper and Maggie. "When you were planting those butterflies with me, Juniper, you said something about how monarch butterflies always return to the same garden, even after traveling thousands of miles. You said family was like that, always coming back to where they belong, and I broke down crying because Rosemary used to say the same thing. She loved butterflies. She had them all over her room, and when I look at you, Juniper, with your quiet wisdom and gentle heart, I see her. When I see you stand up for what's right even when you're scared, that's Rosemary." Gloria stood up, facing the crowd. "I'm a hypocrite and a coward. I've spent 8 years punishing these precious girls for my own guilt. Every time I said they weren't real family, I was trying to convince myself that what I did to Rosemary was justified. But it wasn't. It destroyed her, and it destroyed me, and now I've tried to destroy them too." The party guests slowly dispersed over the next 20 minutes, murmuring amongst themselves as they gathered their children in gift bags. Some offered supportive hugs. Others just wanted to escape the awkwardness of witnessing such raw family drama. Mrs. Washburn squeezed my shoulder and whispered, "Those girls are lucky to have you," before ushering her kids to their car. My sister Camille stayed, helping me clean up crushed cups and abandoned plates while our family sat frozen around the picnic table. Gloria spent the rest of the evening telling us about Rosemary, how she loved astronomy and would map constellations on their bedroom ceiling with glow-in-the-dark stars, how she painted watercolors of butterflies and gave them to sick kids at the hospital, how she always stood up for the underdog kids at school, the ones who ate lunch alone or got picked last in gym class. "She was everything good that I wasn't," Gloria said, her voice raw from crying. "She was kind and brave and generous, and I destroyed her because she dared to be loved more than me for one night." Harold held his wife as she talked, and I could see him processing 40 years of deception. "The photo albums that start when you were 16. You told me your parents lost the earlier ones in a flood." "I burned them," Gloria admitted. "Every single picture of us together, every birthday, every Christmas, every summer vacation. I couldn't bear to see her face, to remember what we were before I ruined it." "Mom," Rod said quietly, "you need therapy, real therapy. Not just a few sessions, but long-term help to deal with this guilt." Gloria nodded, pulling the twins into her arms. "I'll go. I'll do whatever it takes. I've been so cruel to you beautiful girls, punishing you for my own sins. You're not just my grandchildren, you're my teachers. You're showing me what Rosemary tried to show me all those years ago, that family isn't about blood, it's about choice. And we choose each other, every single day." That night, as I tucked the girls into bed, Juniper asked, "Mama, why did Grandma keep that secret for so long?" I smoothed her dark hair back from her face, thinking about how to explain such deep pain to an 8-year-old. Sometimes people think if they bury their mistakes deep enough, they'll disappear. But they don't, baby. They grow in the dark until they poison everything around them. Grandma's guilt about Rosemary grew so big that it hurt everyone she loved. "Like the opposite of a butterfly garden," Maggie said thoughtfully, clutching her stuffed monarch butterfly. "Butterflies need sunshine to grow beautiful. Secrets need darkness to grow ugly." "That's exactly right, sweetheart." Juniper was quiet for a moment, then said, "I'm glad I told everyone, even though it was scary. Grandma needed to let the sunshine in." 2 months later, Gloria started intensive therapy twice a week and joined a support group for adoptive grandparents. She came to Sunday dinners with books about adoption, trauma, and healing, actually taking notes when the counselor spoke. She stopped comparing the girls to Theodore and Charlotte, stopped making cutting remarks about my housekeeping or cooking. She had the butterfly garden professionally landscaped with an expert from the botanical garden, adding native Texas plants that would attract butterflies year-round. In the center, she placed a bench with a bronze plaque that read, "For Rosemary, who taught us that love makes a family, and for Juniper and Magnolia, who reminded us." The change wasn't instant or perfect. Gloria still had her difficult moments, old habits carved from decades of pain. Sometimes she'd start to say something cruel and catch herself, pressing her lips together and taking a deep breath. "That's the old Gloria talking," she'd say. "Let me try again." She started volunteering at an adoption support center, sharing her story with other grandparents who struggled to accept their non-biological grandchildren. She became an advocate for adopted children in ways none of us expected, even testifying at a state hearing about adoption rights. One day, 6 months after the birthday party disaster, she showed me a letter she'd received. It was from a woman named Patricia, who'd been Rosemary's roommate at the adoption support group. "Rosemary talked about you all the time," the letter said. "She loved you until her last day. She kept one photo hidden in her wallet, you two at age 10 wearing matching butterfly costumes for Halloween. She'd want you to know she forgave you. She'd want you to forgive yourself." The birthday party that started as a disaster became the moment our family truly began. Sometimes the worst moments, the ones that bring our ugliest truths into the light, are actually transformations waiting to happen. Like caterpillars in their darkest cocoons, we need that pressure, that struggle, to emerge as something beautiful. Every spring now, when the monarchs return to our garden, Gloria sits on Rosemary's bench with her granddaughters, teaching them about metamorphosis, about second chances, about the families we choose and the love we grow. If this story touched your heart or reminded you that family is about choice and love rather than just blood, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below with your own thoughts about family, forgiveness, or second chances. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful emotional stories that remind us all of our shared humanity. Thank you for watching. And remember, it's never too late to let the sunshine in and transform your family's story.